Hello and welcome back to Football 301. I am your host, Nate Tice. We continue our division preview series today with the NFC South. Falcons, Bucs, Saints, and Panthers. Should be a lot of fun, especially with who's joining me to do those previews today. We're first going to jump into some league news, but we're going to get to the previews. Don't worry, it'll be the large chunk of the show. But to help me do that, and a fan of one of these NFC South teams, my guy, Mr. Four Verts, Charles McDonald. How you doing today, Chuck? Owner of a new cat.
Owner of a new cat. Some stray cat has decided that my backyard is now its home. I guess it's because it's safe because there's a bunch of walls and no one ever goes back there except for me. And I'm certainly not going to attack a cat. So, I got to decide what I'm going to name him. And he's made a little play palace out of all the junk in my backyard that's getting picked up later this week. So we're going to have to adjust our relationship once that's gone. But I think I made a new friend.
Never have to worry about rats again. You know?
No, I don't.
I don't. Call him Bajan. Something like that to start with. We'll go with that. Yeah. But and the third member of our three-man weave, Matt Harmon. How you doing today, Matt? Good to see you. How many 3 shows today, right?
Oh, no, just 2. And thank God, because I landed back home from multiple little trips here less than 12 hours ago. So had a really fun experience with the Charlotte airport, which is basically like an annual.
Don't even get me started. Don't even get me started. Yeah. It's so bad right now. But don't worry, I did spend my time productively there, which we'll get into when we get to the news here because I'm a sick freak. But anyways, yeah, I'm doing good and it's good to be here.
Google Docs, being able to do that on your phone really helps you out. When you're like, oh, I'm stuck here for an hour longer or 2 hours longer, it really helps if you have to get some work done. Charlotte Airport's one of the few airports I've never flown from. Flown from a ton, but I've heard nothing but things about it.
Don't go.
It's Denver Airport.
The Charlotte Airport was perfect like 20 years ago when the city was like half the size that it is now.
Yeah.
But it doubled. And now the airport is just way overpacked. And they're trying to, especially like around this time of year, because it's got like all the ESPN, ACC, SEC kickoff stuff in Charlotte. So it gets really, really congested for major events. It needs an expansion. Or you guys could just leave. That works too.
Just get out. We don't need it anymore.
Yeah.
That's why
I'm trying to go home, man.
That's all the Vegas people complain about too. All right, again, we're going to do our NFC South preview, and we're going to get a little bit of preseason week 1 discussion, one thing that all of us learned. But first, got not a little announcement, a big announcement. We're bringing the Football 301 crew to Sin City, Las Vegas, my place of residence. I was going to say hometown, but it's not. But our place of residence here in Las Vegas in a couple of weeks for a Yahoo Fantasy Kickoff Weekend on Friday, August 22nd and Saturday, August 23rd at the Venetian Resort right here in Vegas on the Strip from 5 to 7 p.m. on both nights. You can catch me, Matt, Mr. Verts over there, Charles McDonald, and the rest of the Yahoo Fantasy crew at the Yahoo Sportsbook inside the Venetian. We're going to have a meet and greet, a fantasy Q&A, and on Saturday night, we'll share our 10 biggest pieces of draft advice before the season starts. You won't want to miss it. It's going to be a ton of fun. Again, that's Friday, August 22nd and Saturday, August 23rd at 5 p.m. both days at the Yahoo Sportsbook inside the Venetian Resort in Las Vegas on the Strip. Also, it's free. So come hang out, come talk some ball with us. We'll have a great time. Excited to meet some of you that are going to come join us. Should be a ton of fun. And I get a nice 15-minute commute to do so. You guys have a little longer trips than I do.
Yeah, just a little
I'll be back in the Charlotte airport for my layover for that trip. So I might not see you guys until maybe Friday. So don't count on me.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Yeah. Matt's hours start at 9 p.m. That because his flight got delayed 4 hours, 5 hours. But no, make sure you come to that. We're looking forward to it. Excited to see all of you there. Do some live stuff as well. Should be a ton of fun at the Venetian. Again, August 22nd and August 23rd. All right, we're going to start the show off. One thing we learned. Matt, I'm going to start with you. What was one thing you learned from the opening weekend of preseason? Our first taste of NFL football for 2025.
Yeah, so since I was delayed in multiple airports yesterday. I got a lot of work done, including one thing because I'm a sick freak. I did a little charting of the Jaguars offensive players here, where they just where they lined up. No routes were charted, no success rates, none of that. But I was just curious about the alignment. And yeah, if you're watching on YouTube, you can see my handwritten. If it gets in frame there, this is what it looks like.
Take a look at my life.
This is not the official documents of what reception perception looks like. This is just what I had available at the time. But anyways, so was interested in the alignment of the receivers. I have, and this is including plays that 2 plays were called back due to penalty. The first one on Anton Harrison, I believe another offensive pass interference / block in the back. There were 2 penalties on one play, but 13 snaps for BTJ, 12 for Travis Hunter, who I don't think played with the first team defense at all. He only played with the first team offense, which I thought was interesting. 9 snaps for De'Ami Parker, 2 for Parker Washington. Hunter was like 50-50 outside slot, but he was 83% of those 12 snaps off the line of scrimmage, whereas BTJ was 84.6% on the line of scrimmage, which I think makes sense for how these 2 guys are going to be used. Obviously, like I said, BTJ is going to play in the slot a little bit, but it'll probably be on the line of scrimmage to keep Travis Hunter off of it. De'Ami Brown was mostly outside, although he was in the backfield for 2 snaps because he was in like full speed motion in terms of one. He actually got a rush attempt on one of them. And Parker Washington was out there for 2 plays, outside, 1 off, 1 on the line of scrimmage. So I thought that was interesting to just take a note of how these very early clues about how these 2 receivers, Brian Thomas Jr. and Travis Hunter, are going to be deployed. I think it makes sense for what they're doing with Hunter, right? He got a screen target. That was one of the plays that was called back. ETN was on the field a lot. So from a running back standpoint, that I think is notable. He had a 10-yard screen reception too. So just some early clues on how I think this offense is going to feel pretty dynamic in terms of the player usage, how they have 2 guys who can line up inside and out, 2 guys that can take snaps on the line of scrimmage. But again, especially Travis Hunter mostly being used off the line and in the slot a lot, I think is going to allow him to get a lot of free releases. They had him running a lot of quick in breakers. So just again, these early clues on the Jaguars wide receiver usage, and in addition to Travis Etienne being the guy that, like, all training camp, it sounded as Tank Bigsby's taking those first team reps, but actually it was Etienne out there. And I think in the preseason game, and that doesn't mean like, this is the final answer, right? In terms of what the running backs are going to look like, because I think Basil Tutin did play well later into the game. I watched a lot of that one live as well. But yeah, I thought that was Etienne's like receiving usage, especially on those screens. We know how productive the Buccaneers offense was last year, throwing screens to multiple players, but especially to Bucky Irving out of the backfield. That was at least, it looks like there's going to be some carryover there against that offenses this year.
Yeah, I think it's been curious for me, and why we'll talk about it later this week when we do the AFC South. But with the Jags and how they use Travis Hunter, I've been like, I want to see it. Like, yeah, they can say whatever. We'll see once the actual plays or the games are happening, who they're playing. And it was like, no, this is what they've been practicing like. He's a receiver first, and he's a spot DB, a role-playing DB that they use in high leverage situations. That's what it reads to me. So I'm glad you brought up the notes. Parker Washington always remains. I think he's going to be one of those guys that's annoyingly in the league for like 9 years. Like, it's just like,
I kind of like him though. I think he's a nice little useful player.
I do too. I know. I always keep and then honestly, and this is the bottom roster guy. This guy's not fantasy relevant or anything. They have Trent Irwin on their roster, which I actually kind of like because he's a nice backup guy and everything. But a lot of team speed. The Jags have a lot of team speed, like more than maybe I've even given them credit for. But we'll talk more about the Jags later this week. But good to use. I love the charting. That's literally that's quality control work right there. Right.
Shameful, truly shameful stuff, honestly, that I did that. But what else are you going to do at 10:30 p.m. at night in an airport other than, chart the games? I guess that's what we're doing.
Well, tabs. Paul Christ used to, so like he was not very good with computers. And what usually happens is like a coach will come work with their quality control coach or their GA and be like, all right, can you diagram these? Like put them into a computer so you can again save them, use them later. Paul hated that. He liked having the handwritten notes. So it was just so funny. I've been so many places where they're all nice and neat in those little squares. Everybody that's seen a playbook online, they all kind of look similar. But then our installs would just be his handwritten play diagrams, and it would just be copied for every player and every coach, and that's what we officially used. Hey, we scored a lot of points at Wisconsin.
Yeah, there you go.
But then when I got to Pitt, I was like, man, we gotta make this a little bit more formal. So I would start diagramming them, so we had like a system and everything. But that was like what he preferred. He's like, no, I'm gonna hand draw them, and you could just print them, just copy them, put them on the scanner, and print them, and just print them off for everybody. I'm good. I don't need a computer.
No, that's he's right. He's right by that. Because there's so many studies on how you remember things better when you write them out. You know, that's why
I'm a huge handwritten note guy.
The first thing we used to do, like in high school, our head coach or our offensive line coach, he played for the Ravens, and what we would do every week, the first week of training camp, is we would sit there, you know, with the grid, and you got to draw like the plays up on it. We would just sit there and draw run plays against different fronts over and over and over and over again until we memorized them. We spent the first full week of training camp doing that for our indoor stuff. Yeah,
I'm sure people see. I have notebook after notebook in our closet over there. I cleaned out our closet this weekend, and I actually kept those notebooks, which I can't believe I did. I'm like, I am becoming an old man. But I just because I would just write everything down. It'd be like the 40th time I've installed Stick, and I just write it down. And just because it was just like easily retained, I had my own little coding system. Underline meant this, squiggly line meant this, square meant this. And you get around the NFL players, and it's like you see some guys using computers or iPads or something, and then you just see all like how many guys just have a handwritten notebook with their own little notes in there, centers and quarterbacks and stuff. It's important. I'm glad we got to talk about some handwritten note usage right here. But Charles, what was your week 1 of preseason takeaway? What did you learn this weekend?
Well, you know, I can't quit what's around me. So I was really interested in the Jets run game and really just their whole offense and how that was going to look. And I was pleasantly surprised with, you know, the first action of the Jets offense. And it wasn't just like the starting unit. Yeah, I was digging it. Like it wasn't just like even the starting unit. It's they looked like a team that was in need of a reset, you know, from where they had been dragging through the Aaron Rodgers stuff and the Zach Wilson stuff, because a lot of those guys on the team were still there through those quarterback changes. You get Aaron Glenn here, and it just felt like they finally got like maybe like the emotional reset they meant, because they were coming hard like for a preseason game in a way that we didn't even see them play in the regular season towards the end of last season, when it just kind of felt like they had given up on the season. But like the starting offense, they ran the ball well. Braylon Allen looks like he could potentially cut into Breece Hall's touches this year. The offensive line played well. Like Josh Myers had a good game at center for them this week. I thought Elijah Vera Tucker played well. Mambo played well. So they've invested a lot into being able to run the ball and wanting to run the ball. And I thought it looked good. And even later in the game, Donovan Edwards, a former Michigan back who is with the Jets now, he played a really strong game just in terms of some of the concerns you have about him at Michigan that kind of tanked his draft stock was, hey, this guy's really fast, but I don't know if he can see anything. Because after Blake Corum left, I think he had like 3 yards to carry, which doesn't make sense for a guy that's as explosive as he is. But it looked like he was starting to get back on the right track. So I just thought it was impressive that they bought in this quickly to whatever AG is selling, and the offense looked good. And I know it's just a preseason game, but seeing Justin Fields like get on the move and kind of add an extra threat to that offense was pretty fun. So I'm doubling down on this is like the favorite offense that maybe you don't want to watch every week, but it's going to be an absolute play against your defenses.
They're my 2022 Falcons. That was just. They're not going to be good.
So
but I love this run game.
Yeah. They're going to hurt people, man. They're going to hurt people.
They are. They're going to beat up some bad teams. And also on top of it, Justin Fields looks great in that uniform, wearing number 7.
Yeah.
If nothing else, he looks really, really cool in the Jets uniform, the Jets whites that they use. Sauce Gardner looked phenomenal.
Dude, he's back.
I know preseason.
Yeah, he's trying again.
It's Packers starters. Yeah, I mean, he was all over the place. He wants to carry again. My prediction is Braylon Allen. This is his backfield by the end of the season. Not Breece Hall's lost some vision. Like I don't think he really trusts it right now. And they've already had some stuff kind of come out like a little bit like, oh, we don't really know about an extension for Breece, so we got to work on it. Like, when you look at the Jets right now, Matt? What do you kind of think of their offense? Maybe just what they can be this year? What any optimism? Anyone outside of Garrett Wilson? Anything like? What's your vision for them?
Well, yeah, Breece Hall's like cryptic tweeting too. You know, like time will tell or whatever. something like that.
Internet,
I feel like there's
Open
a chance he's a Dallas Cowboy at some point by like the end of the year. Just that actually would make a lot of sense probably for both parties because they certainly. I was at the Fantasy Football Expo this weekend and like people are drafting Cowboys running backs. I'm like, have some self-respect. I mean, I did pay $1 for Miles Sanders in a salary cap draft. So like just trying to get out of here.
Football Expo.
Dude, the biggest convention of the coolest guys you've ever met.
How bad did it smell?
I'm no comment officially on that.
The same as the board game expos I've been to.
Board game expo. That's some cool guy stuff. But anyways, yes, no, definitely the coolest thing that I do. It's a great time. A lot of wonderful people. Yeah, sure. Anyways, but I love that your comparison about the 2022 Falcons too, because a lot of people say like, oh, Garrett Wilson, he's going to have a bunch of targets this year. I actually think he could have a 2022 Drake London season where he has 29% of the targets, and that equals 117 targets because they run the football so much this year in New York. But yeah, I really think this. I mean, even Isaiah Davis mixing in with the starters too, like that is very much they're throwing everything at it. I do think they really lack for a second option in the receiving game. Mason Taylor, rookie, he's a rookie tight end. He has a high ankle sprain. Sounds like Josh Reynolds is, their established second receiver, and he's not really like a needle moving player at this point. So yeah, I think if they are definitely going to be a bully ball offense, and as long as the defense can keep them in games, and I am high on this defense turning it around this year, I think they can probably pull off that style of play to not be a good team, but a frisky team.
Yeah, a bad team beater is like the line I like to give because they're physical and all that stuff. They have Tyler Johnson taking significant snaps. Tyler Johnson's like one of my pet back of roster QBs, and he's taking real snaps. So like that kind of speaks to the receiving.
He's played like for like 6 teams. I mean,
yeah.
And every team signs him for the same reason. Oh man, he does some dirty work stuff. He's strong, and then he's gone 6 months later. No, all right. And Armand Mabao, though, you mentioned him, Charles, too. Their first round pick right tackle. He looked great. So that offensive line is going to be like a top 10 unit this year. Like it's a good identity to kind of build around. All right, I'm going to get on to mine. Staying in New York, I'm buying Brandon Allen stock. That was my other one. But the Giants' defensive line looks scary. Abdul Carter looks real, which I think a lot of us expected him to look real. But man, just right away, already had 3 pressures on 3 pass rush attempts. That's a pretty good start to a preseason. And a couple against Deion Dawkins, which is always nice. Had just overall, I mean, we were all optimistic about this defense, or at least had there's an angle there. There's a path there to optimism, but it starts with the defensive line. Abdul Carter looking real is a big deal. Brian Burns is a Pro Bowl quality edge player, plays a run really well. Of course, Dexter Lawrence is a defensive player of the year candidate. Just those 3 is enough to create a good defensive line. And then they just got nice role players on top of it. But Giants defensive line looks very real. I think this could be a top 10 unit if a couple guys on the back end hold up, but it all starts with that front, and that front looked really good. So even though this is going to be the quote unquote bad team of the NFC East, with the other 3 teams that have aspirations for not only playoffs, but winning playoff games, got to go against the Giants defense. Hopefully you don't have some O-line injuries when you need a win in week 14. Hopefully you have your starters out there because they're going to be coming after you. So it was cool to see that they started kind of ripping and roaring. But anything else from this that Giants game? I'm surprisingly not talking about the offense because I got to see a little bit more. But what'd you think about maybe the rest of the Giants, Charles?
I thought the Giants defense, they had an interesting game. I mean, I sadly this is another game that I watched live, like almost front to back. I've been watching more preseason games, like the regular season NFL games, as I get older. I don't know what's happening to me, but it was cool to see their front. It was cool to see their front and how they got after it. I thought Darius Alexander, their 3rd round pick, has some nice snaps up front from Toledo. And once you get like the full thing with Dexter Lawrence in the picture, I think it's just going to make Abdul Carter more deadly, because we've seen Dexter Lawrence turn into one of the most devastating interior rushers in the league. Like, you have to get 2 bodies on him most of the time, and that's just going to leave one-on-ones for Abdul Carter, which we saw this past weekend, that he's able to at least get some wins against some quality offensive linemen and win those one-on-one matchups. Because if you can get space, then he can win with his speed. And when you have Dexter Lawrence up there, it's going to create a whole lot of space. The one, I guess, interesting thing, and maybe from a negative standpoint, was Deonte Banks was in this game for a long time. Like
Yep.
he was in that game for a long time. Because I remember I looked up, it was at the mid or late second quarter, and he got beat on a play. I was like, oh no, because he's talented, man. Like that rookie season did happen, but it seems like, you know, sometimes like we've seen this with guys where sometimes the first thing you do is the best thing you do, and you just kind of fall down from there. And hopefully he gets it back together, because I think he is the kind of the missing link for this defense. If he's bad and they got to go put some other random corner out there, or if he's just bad and playing all season, that could ruin a lot of things that they're trying to build right now.
He refuses to turn for the football. It's one of the most. It's one of those things I watch. He does not look for the football. And it's one of these things where it's after you see the receiver's eyes or visor, you hear it. I don't know, like just turn, get your hand up. Like he stays with guys. He just doesn't turn. It's so strange.
That's why I can't get like all the way on board with this defense, man. Like you said it. It's I think this is an awesome front, but it's kind of, you do have to go just. Don't look at the corners. Don't look at that spot in particular. And I mean, it dawns on me too that like every day the Giants seem to post like multiple training camp Malik Neighbors highlights, and their corners are just getting deep right, left and right. I know Neighbors is awesome, but at some point you got to think those guys are like, geez, the team is engagement farming at our expense, and they're just getting completely cooked out there. And I would in training camp, again, he's a great player, whatever, but it happens in the real games too.
Yes. It absolutely does. It happened in the preseason game. And then even offensively, though, some of their young guys look decent. You mentioned Neighbors, but Theo Johnson, I'm bullish on their tight end, and he's looking good. And then Marcus Bowe, their little tackle that they drafted on day 3 that we were higher on, and he looked good right away too. So yeah, Giants have some interesting young guys. I know a lot of attention's on the quarterback, Jackson Dart, who had a couple nice things. I think he really has to speed up that clock in his head to be playable. But yeah, I mean, it's a wait and see. It's one preseason game. That's why I don't want to make any outlandish statements about quarterbacks. But anyways, no, Giants defense front, really interesting. Think that whole defense could be interesting, especially in that division. That they can be a nice little kind of, I was gonna say a wild card, but I don't mean a wild card team. Nice little chaos thrown into that division with that front. All right, but we're gonna take our first break, and we're gonna start with our NFC South preview, starting with the Falcons. Here we go, Charles. All right, we are back onto the NFC South preview. Again, for each of these teams, we're going to be have a question about the offense, defense. We'll do a breakout player, and then we'll pick a win over or under total. Going with the Atlanta Falcons, though, Charles, I'm going to give you the floor. Starting with their offense, starting a new quarterback. I mean, he started the end of last year, Michael Penix Jr., their second-year guy they drafted in the top 10 last year. They returned a lot, I think all of their other starters on this offense outside the center, but then that center, Ryan Newsel, did play last year. How are we feeling about the Falcons offense? What are you focusing on? What can make or break this offensive unit? Just give me your thoughts on it.
I mean, it was a good offense last year until it wasn't, you know? And I think it's funny. Like if you look at their splits offensively, and they have some hilarious splits from last year. They were basically like one of the worst second half teams in the league, and that's in the second half of games, and also one of the worst offenses in the league in the second half of the season. Kirk Cousins, just became a lemon. Kept throwing interceptions, so you had to put Michael Penix out there. I guess really, I'm trying to say this without hurting people's feelings, because last time we talked about this, people got really upset, and I didn't even think we said anything that offensive. But it's just Michael Penix needs to work on his accuracy, like the consistency of it, which I, as a Falcons fan, am saying like I want that to happen. He's only played 3 games. I think it's interesting that they seem to think he doesn't need any preseason snaps at all. He only played in 1 preseason game last year. He's not playing in any this year. A strategy that they're developing, or not developing, they're taking from the Rams and some of these other coaches that have kind of punted on preseason. But like when Matt LaFleur started doing that, his quarterback was Aaron Rodgers. Sean McVay was doing it with Matt Stafford. This is not that. Like, this is a guy who's only in his second year and he needs to play. So I view this as like kind of a huge wild card, because we haven't seen very much of him. There's only Like if you look at the 3 tapes of film that you have last year, it's kind of what you would expect coming out of Washington. You know, there's some big time throws where he can really rip it down the field, and there's also some really easy layups that he's missing. I have no reason to think that would be different because I haven't seen him play. They refuse to let us see him play outside of like training camp clips that you're getting. So I think this offense is going to be pretty inconsistent. But the good thing is you still have one of the best running games in the league. Bijan Robinson's an actual star. I think Tyler Algier, we've already seen Tyler Algier start for the Falcons back in that 2022 season that you were talking about, and he was awesome then. So you have 2 starting caliber running backs in your backfield, pretty good offensive line if they can stay healthy, and a true number 1 receiver in Drake London. Like that's a pretty good starting point for Michael Penix to kind of come in here and take over. But he's just played so little football up to this point, and they're not letting him play in the preseason. So like week 1, you got to hit the ground running, and I kind of view that as an unfair expectation of him almost too, like that they're putting him in the spot where the first action that he's going to see is when it counts, and he just hasn't played much NFL football up to this point. So I think this whole thing just revolves around him because I know I'm getting Bijan Robinson. I know what I'm getting in the offensive line if they stay healthy. I know what I'm getting from Drake London. I mean, at this point, I know what Kyle Pitts is. I know what Darnell Mooney is. Like these are all proven commodities in some way. So it's just all on him. And I hate to make it that reductionist, but it is all on him. Everything else is set up for him to have a quality year. Yep. You just got to, go do it.
He's only a new starter. I mean, if you really look at it, and those reps really, I know, I get the Raheem Morris and the sitting the vets thing. And like, I know that's a big movement the last 8-ish, 9, 10 years. But even Sean McVay's first year with the Rams in 2017, where he signed all these vets, Robert Woods, Andrew Whitworth. They had all these vets on this team. They had Jared Goff, who was going into his second year and had one of the worst statistically rookie seasons ever. That guy was playing in the preseason. Todd Gurley was playing in the preseason. Robert Woods was playing in the preseason. They got to, because Sean McVay became Wonder Boy, they then became, we're sitting all the starters as they went along. 2018, they went supernova as a team. That's when they started sitting starters. But again, this is the whole Falcons thinking where some of the negativity comes from, some of the teams building, is that they are using this narrative kind of what the Rams did, or we're going to sit Penix like Jordan Love, for 4 years or whatever they had at that point, is that they're using the end game of the narrative as opposed to the process of the narrative, how they got to that point. So it's all these things they're saying, and then that's where it just doesn't always totally add up. And I would like to see Penix have those reps when they play the Bucs and the Vikings and Todd Bowles and Brian Flores in the first 2 weeks. Just a little hesitant, a little scary with new starting quarterback. All right, Matt, going over to you. What are you focusing on this offense? But also, do you think Drake London breaks 200 targets this year based on how the pass catchers are breaking down and how much Michael Penix seems to love him?
Yeah, he had a 38.9% target share in the 3 games that Michael Penix started at the end of last year, which, I mean, it's like an outrageous number. And, we talked about this, and I agree that, Charles, I thought we were pretty fair with our comments about Michael Penix. I think you just juxtapose it to what's coming out of the team, which is they will anyone that will listen. They are basically he's going to be great this year. It almost feels like they're selling him as like Patrick Mahomes coming into his second year where he comes out and throws 50 touchdowns. But I think I agree. I love Drake London. I'm super high on him this year. I love the way they used him last year, that they cut kind of the difference of, hey, this is a guy that can win out at X receiver in every single snap, but we're not going to ask him to do that. We're going to move him around the formation. We're going to weaponize all of these receivers, really, and especially Darnell Mooney. But it's a really light group, and Mooney is already hurt. Like after that, it's like, okay, Ray McLeod, who actually ran the most routes on this team last year. I don't think people know that, but yeah, he ran the most routes on the Falcons last year, did Ray McLeod. And dude, he might do it again. I mean, because again, Mooney is hurt. Drake London had that. I mean, he was pretty much an Iron Man other than that one overtime Bucs game. So it's just, again, there's not a lot of room for error with the health of the pass catchers either, because I think Kyle Pitts can still contribute, but he's a very hyper specific player at this point and can't be like the inline tight end that they want him to be. So I guess you can kind of group him in with the wide receivers, but he's, like I said, a hyper specific player. I'm actually really interested in the run game of this unit too, because I don't want to just copy paste what they did last year. Cause I agree, like Charles, I think we know what we're going to get from Bijan Robinson. We know he's a great back. I actually think he could be more maximized as a receiver, but last year they were the most zone heavy run game in the league by a lot. By a significant amount, 71.1. Yeah, it was like the next time they were 71% zone, and then the next team was like, it was Arthur Smith, obviously, with the Steelers.
Yeah.
And it was sub 60%. So big gap. But they had the highest success rate on gap scheme runs. Like, I actually think if they do, and I don't know if their offensive linemen are necessarily built to do this, but if they can throw some more out there, like, one of the minor complaints you hear about Bijan is that, like, oh, he hasn't really given you those big explosive field flipping plays quite yet. Well, you're going to get a lot more of those out of gap scheme runs if you can block it up and rip those holes open. So that's an area where, beyond the Michael Penix of it all, if they can add some more just schematic tweaks in the run game, I think they could become a more explosive unit. And because the pass catchers are pretty light outside of Drake London, who I agree with you, Nate, could lead the league in targets and in the right scenario, even push for like the Triple Crown this year, if Michael Penix really is that type of guy, right? Beyond that, I don't really know if Darnell Mooney's not healthy where they're getting explosive plays in the pass game.
It's a great point, because that is probably the one little negative with Bijan, is that he's more of a doubles hitter. And boy, he'll hit about 100 doubles though. Yeah. He's some of the most fun tape in the league. It's just that is the explosive play element. That's where you hope the pass game kind of helps out with that. You know, you always have to find explosive somewhere. Some people it's run, some pass, they have to find in the passing game. You're hoping with Penix's big arm and total willingness to chuck it, that's what opens up the passing game. No, that's a great point. Rob Moore has the record, former Cardinals and Jets receiver Rob Moore, who actually I worked with in the Falcons. He's with Carolina now as a receiver coach. He has the record for targets in a season, 208. And that was in 1997 with the Cardinals. And I used it as I was in charge of trivia when I was the coach there. We would do trivia on Fridays, and that was one of the questions: who holds the record for the highest targets? And everyone thought Rob Moore was like a joke answer, because of multiple choice. I had like T.O., all these other guys up there, and then it was Rob Moore, 208 targets. But I jokingly say it, but Drake is going to get up there. I just think how the offense is going to go. Penix loves him. He gets open. Drake London was first last year in successful targets out of the slot and second in first downs per route out of the slot. Like, he is so good out of the slot and is a ball winner on the outside. Really, I just want to stick I have like more of a question and something I just want to see with this offense. And I just love everything you guys brought up, because I have really nothing more to add. The run game's going to be sick. Last year was the best. I brought this up on, I think it was our year 2 quarterback show. The Falcons had the highest success rate, or tied for the highest rushing success rate on running back runs on record. It goes back to 2002 in True Media, and they're tied with the 2004 Chiefs, who had Priest Holmes and all these multiple all-pro linemen and all that stuff. But it can't get better, I don't think. Like, that's as good as you're going to get as far as an efficient run game, and Bijan's a big part of that. He had the highest success rate of any running back with 300 more carries ever, according to Pro Football Reference. So it's just like that. It was so good last year, and the number 2 is really good, and the O-line's pretty good. Like, it's a good O-line. Also have a lefty center. We've talked about this, Chuck. Lefty center to lefty quarterback, which I've never seen ever in the history of time. I've never seen a lefty center and a lefty quarterback at the same time. And they have a lefty running back and a lefty number 1 receiver, which is just, they got some southpaws for the Braves there. But the number one thing I'm looking at with this offense, once Penix got in there, it felt very siloed to me. And what I mean by that is the runs and the passes didn't match up. It was a lot of formational tells to me. And again, this was a new quarterback, so they probably tried to make it streamlined for him. But it didn't. The runs and that great run game with all those zones that you mentioned, Matt, the play action didn't really tie with that. Like, it just didn't all tie in together. So it's really more, I think they can do it. Like, obviously Zach Robinson has done this before in offenses he's been in. That's something I want to see more. When you're in the shotgun, it is an automatic pass. You're running out of the shotgun. You're running play action out of the shotgun. When you're under center or the pistol, you're just doing passes and straight dropbacks. Just a little bit more blending of their offense. That's really what I want to see. So, kind of to sum up what you guys say, it's like, yeah, if Penix is the real deal, okay, this is a whole different discussion, but we have to see it. And it's just curious how they've been going about it. I think a side of the ball, I think we all can say this too. If they finish top 10 offense, if Penix is just pretty good, like, I wouldn't be totally shocked. Like, they have all the makings to have that. They have a receiver, they have receiving talent, they can run the ball. So, but side of the ball that we have a few more questions on, the defense. Charles, Atlanta Falcons defense. They drafted 2 edge rushers in the first round, and Jalen Walker and James Pierce, that they moved up for James Pierce, which we can talk about. Pretty rough defense last year, bottom 10 in a lot of metrics we look at. How are you feeling about them going into 2025? Did they do enough with adding pass rush juice? What are their weaknesses? What are you focusing on?
No, they didn't do enough, and I feel like I'm losing my. Like I'm going crazy over here, like watching all these puff pieces about the Falcons' defense. Like, do you guys forget what this is every season?
Yeah.
For, I mean, literally since Matt Ryan was drafted, so we're going on 20 years. It was like they just don't play defense.
They're a dome team.
Right. Okay. So what you said earlier about like looking at the endpoint first. It's like that's so accurate because I view their offseason on defense. It's like a kid whose parents are okay with him eating candy for breakfast every day, right? Like I'm trying to get the dessert. So yeah, we couldn't rush the passer last year. They never rushed the passers. It's time to fix that, right? We need pass rushers. So let's just go draft Jalen Walker. Cool, good start. Trade the future first for James Pierce. Okay, it's a little crazy, but I see where you're going. Did you guys forget about defensive tackles and linebackers and like a cornerback too? Because that's where this defense is actually soft. Like I didn't find like the range where they actually drafted James Pierce to be all that defensive. Like a late first round for a guy who's got the speed, will probably be able to get some sacks just off being a fast guy off the edge. That's fine, but you guys, they didn't try to piece together the whole picture. They're going to get absolutely steamrolled on the ground this year. And dude, in their own division, like you played Tampa Bay, New Orleans, Carolina, 3 of the best offensive lines in the league with good running games and coordinated well. And you're going up with Rook Oro, who they drafted in the second round last year and traded up for, who didn't have a good rookie year. David Onyemata, who is towards the end of his career. You signed Leonard Floyd, Morgan Fox. Like, this is what you're combating it with. So I don't understand like where they keep getting, you know, it's like they keep like, ooh, that's shiny. Like, let's put this over here. But you have to, it's like, it's an old football adage, but it's true that you have to be able to stop the run. Because even in a pass-happy NFL league, if a team sees this front seven, it's like, why would we even drop back? Like, let's just run it down their throats and try to keep Walker and Pierce, you know, on their toes. It was really weird. And even guys like, even some of the moves I like Billy Bowman, who they drafted from Oklahoma, he was an all-juice team member. Charles Robinson, we liked him, and a lot of people in the NFL liked him. But like, that's a player you add after you've gotten your cornerback to, after you've gotten some defensive tackles, after you've tried to fix up your linebacker room. It's like they can't be honest with themselves at all about what is actually happening here with their team, and it's going to lead to, you know, a pretty horrific defense, I think, this year, where you can't even maximize what Jalen Walker and James Pierce do best. So yeah, pretty bad.
Yeah. Other than that, pretty good. I got some defensive stats, so I'll let it. But no, just getting to your point about like running the ball. Like, what are every football player that's ever played since Pop Warner onwards? What are you taught first? How to run block, and the best player on the field is the running back. And people forget, because quarterbacks get so good as you go up to high school, go up to college, go up to the NFL. Quarterbacks and receivers get better and better and better. But offensive linemen, every drill since day one is to run the ball and run block. That's what you work on first. And that's what everybody knows best. But then that's the thing, is everyone thinks once you get to the NFL, oh, you just chuck it every time. If any NFL play caller that's worth a grain of salt, I don't even know if that's right, worth anything, they will run the ball if it's there. If they can get 5 yards a pop, do not do anything else. Like, it's just so much easier to do it this way. Passing becomes easier because the safeties aren't worried about defending the pass. So that's why I always think it's like, well, we improved our pass rush that ranked 30th last year. Well, you got to stop the run first too. Like, otherwise teams will just go, oh, okay, you can rush us. Oh, you got 240-pound edges. All right, we'll just run it on you. Like, you know, you're getting to the end point before you shore up the first thing before you get to that end point. But yeah, I got more on that. But Matt, with you watching this Falcons defense, I know fantasy wise you get excited, but otherwise, what else are you focusing on with them? Are there any positives to take away? But is it more just the same what Charles is saying?
Yeah, this whole division, my buddy Scott Pianowski on the Fantasy Show calls it the pinball division. Like, it's definitely just going to be a lot of, because I'm to some degree, Saints maybe excluded, excited about all of these offenses. At least I know who's getting the football in New Orleans. Not a lot of players to spread that thing around to, but a lot of defenses that could give it up, and a lot of interesting offense in this division. And Atlanta certainly fits in there. I'll just keep it simple. I'll let you roll on the defense here, Nate. I just think, like, listening to Charles talk about this, it comes back to what we talked about, I think, on the walk home from night one of our draft show, that the Falcons just, like, they almost like it's like they pitch themselves as this, like, smart, methodical, like, Rams organization, but then they behave like the New Orleans Saints, and then because that's where Terry Fontenot comes from. But, like, they just exude, like, arrogance with a lot of these things, and that sounds harsh, but it's just like, if it works out, yeah, it's and they can, throw the finger back at us and be like, see, told you, all this stuff worked out. Like, Rook took a step in year 2. These edge rushers were awesome. Michael Penix threw 50 touchdowns. Awesome. But if it doesn't, like, there's just not a lot of room for being wrong. And I think any smart person always leaves room for, and, like, smart organization leaves, like, okay, well, what if we're wrong here? Like, how do we recover from this? And this whole operation, I think, as Charles summed it up there, there's just not a lot of room for error on the defense.
Every decision and team building and all this stuff. I mean, every decision, play calling. I mean, every decision in life we could talk about, but everything's a risk reward. Like, it's all a bet. Is it 70? Oh yeah, 90% shot this succeeds. 5% shot that it's great. Well, we also got 5% shot that's terrible. And I think a lot of them is just that I appreciate optimism. I'm overall an optimistic person, but also, like, as a team builder, I always think of, like, oh, what could go wrong here? Okay, how do we shore up if this goes wrong? And to me, it's just like, yeah, they shored up one part. Okay, we added pass rush juice, but it was just like at the, just letting everything else go aside to answer that one question. And they're betting on themselves a lot, which I think any of our discussion here shouldn't kind of, like, that's exactly what kind of matches that. It's just that they just keep going, well, we're going to do this because we've done this before. Well, they already fired their defensive play caller. Raheem Morris already took over last year. And then you look, okay, yeah, they got to get after the passer, 30th in pressure rate. And you look, Falcons since 2019, that's as far back I can look, all their pressure rates are like the bottom 50 from all the teams since 2019. Like, they were dead last in 2021. They had the lowest pressure rate on record. So since 2019, 2022, they're 189th out of 192. Last year, 177th out of 192 defenses since 2019 in pressure rate. So it's just like, it is an ongoing thing. It's like part of their DNA at this point. It was a thing when I worked there. My first year there was 2014. And the two things they wanted to answer were, well, they wanted to get tougher, which is just like, oh yeah, you just turn on that switch. But
still working on that.
The things that they wanted to protect the quarterback, because Matt was getting his ass kicked, Matt Ryan, and they wanted to get after the passer. So they drafted Jake Matthews. The first year I was there, second year was Vic Beasley. And that was to answer those questions. But it was just like, that's been a thing for over a decade. But what I'm going to get back to, this is well sum it up with, not good against the run. They're 26th in rushing suplex rate. The thing was, if they were really good situationally, I'd be like, oh yeah, I can bet on these coaches maybe improving this. But they hired Jeff Ulbrich, who does some cool pressure stuff, but Jeff Ulbrich kind of runs a lot of base coverages. Like, he just runs quarters a lot, man a lot. It's not, you need dudes to do that. It's easier to do that in New York with all the guys they got. Last year, the Falcons were 31st in third down rate allowed, 28th in red zone efficiency allowed. So it wasn't like situational football was really good and they're really well taught and they did these cool things. So it's like, I don't know. They just keep talking themselves up about these certain things and it just doesn't add up as an outsider. Again, like you guys are saying, could be proven wrong and they could just nail this and they just nail these decisions and I'll be like, okay, I'll eat crow. But as an outsider and just seeing what they're adding up, it just doesn't make sense to me. It might be an approved defense, but I don't know. It just doesn't really. They're betting on the wrong things, I think.
Are you telling me that Mike Hughes starting at cornerback doesn't move you? David Onyemata in 2025 doesn't excite you, man? Morgan Fox in 2025 played a key role in your defensive line. Leonard Floyd.
I know.
And AJ Terrell I just felt like I was going crazy. I know. It's just and the bad part about AJ is like he's not the perfect corner, so he still gets dunked on every once in a while. But the rest of the defense is so bad that I feel like sometimes like when he's not
worse.
perfect, like you really, really feel it because they are getting shredded. So I don't know. They're going to be terrible on defense again. But that's nothing new. So I don't know why Falcons fans think this is the year. Oh, we're going to be good at defense. It's been 20 years. They haven't had a good defense in Michael Vick as the quarterback. That's actually true.
They need another first rounder on defense, but they don't have that. But also, if you look it up, who they open up with, versus Bucs, at Vikings, who should have an improved run game, at Panthers, versus Commanders, another good run game, versus Bills, top 10 run game, at 49ers, Kyle Shanahan run game, versus Dolphins, which could be all over the place, but they have a run game. All right, breakout player. Charles, start with you.
I'm going to go with Xavier Watts. I actually kind of like this fit. The third round safety from Notre Dame that they drafted. I like the fit with Jesse Bates. Again, like I actually like Watts and Bowman, who they drafted on the third day of the draft or third day of the draft. It just not in conjunction with not having a real front in front of them. But I do think like with Jesse Bates and Xavier Watts, it's going to be kind of interesting because those are both guys who like to come down and take chances and make big plays on the ball. And every once in a while, like even Bates will got on a double move. So there might be some bad looking plays in there, but I do think it increases like the margin for potentially getting turnovers, which is ultimately what you're going to need if you're not going to be like a sound down to down defense. So Xavier Watts is my pick.
And that's the thing when you're on a defense like this and you need those turnovers. Guys like Jesse Bates are going to be like, they're jumping everything. And like you said, it can be boom or bust for him. Great player, but boom or bust for him. Matt, what about you? Breakout player for the Falcons.
I honestly had no idea where to go with this one. I couldn't really pick any because I feel like they're it's just easy to say Penix, I guess, what is like that should be the correct answer. Then like it better be the correct answer. It better be the correct answer. I really had no idea where to go with this one because there's like they need Jalen Walker to be a breakout player. They need James Pierce to be a breakout player. It feels kind of cheating to take a first round rookie, but I don't know. I honestly, great answer here on Football 301, but I have no idea where to go with this one.
I know. I was like, I put Drake London question mark. Does that even count? But I
dude, he was like fourth among receivers and receiving yards last year.
And I think he has a Pro Bowl already, doesn't he? Yeah, like he can't do a Pro Bowl breakout. My nerdy one, I went Matthew Bergeron, their left guard. Liked him coming out. Think he's a good player, good solid guard. I think maybe with this offense taking out, breakout player for us. Only allowed one one-on-one sack last year, and he had allowed the same one-on-one pressure rate as Trey Smith, from the Chiefs, who just got the highest contract ever for a guard, and Zach Martin, who just retired, but all-time great guard, Zach Martin. So just wanted to give him a shout. Matthew Bergeron, good player at left guard. All right, over/under wins. Charles, it's at 7.5. What do you got? It's a good number.
I think I'll go over. I think they can get to 8 or 9 wins just with the offense supporting cast, but not much further than that.
Matt?
Yeah, it's kind of exactly how I feel. Eight wins sounds like they look like an 8-win team to me. Really fun offense, defense. It's going to give it up on the other side. So yeah, I think the 7.5 actually felt really good, and I can give it a slight over there.
Okay, I'll be different. I'll go slight under because I even wrote down. I go, this is a 7-10 or 8-9 team to me. So yeah, 7.5 was a great number that Vegas put it at. So I'll go under just to have one little different there. But I think next year is maybe I can build some optimism, but I need to see some more signs. I need to see some other stuff, but it's a funky team, those Atlanta Falcons, those dirty birds. All right, moving on to the Carolina Panthers. Didn't have a lot of wins last year. Finished with another top 10 pick. Bryce Young showed some signs. The run game showed some signs. The defense did not show some signs, but they try to improve that a little bit. All right, but we're going to start with the Panthers offense. Matt, I'll start with you. I'm really liking this receiver room they're building there and a lot of other things on this offense, but what's grabbing your attention with the Panthers offense?
Yeah, it's definitely the receiver room and how it melds with Bryce Young. I was watching Dave Canales saying today that, we're going to play our best guys. He might have said this after the preseason game. I don't know, but I saw the clip today. He said, we're going to play our best guys, and Jalen Coker is shown to be one of our most reliable guys. And, I mean, he should get more playing time. Yeah, let's go. I love Jalen Coker. Adam Thielen's still there. Hunter Renfro's gotten good reviews from training camp. I don't really know what to do with that, but he's gotten good reviews from training camp. Maybe he can contribute on this roster. And Xavier Legette got himself tossed out of the preseason game for fighting, but I am at least interested. Coker was better. Coker was better than Legette as a rookie. I think straight up, I thought the film was better on Coker than Legette. That doesn't mean that Legette's going to be terrible, but I think he can be used in the right role. But this all really does come back to Tedero McMillan, their 8th overall draft pick. And, again, preseason take here, but he was running like the exact routes that I expected him to run, these intermediate routes, digs, outs, that Bryce Young really likes to throw those kind of horizontal breaking routes in the intermediate area of the field. He was really good pushing the football on out routes last year, and I think his receivers let him down. He really loves to throw deeper dig routes over the middle of the field. He might be the only short quarterback that works that area of the field really, really well. So I just think if he is a day one hit as a starting X receiver, which maybe that's a lot to ask of a rookie wide receiver. And I don't think he will be 80% outside on the line of scrimmage like Marvin Harrison was last year. I think they will. I think Canales is a little bit better about moving these guys around the field, and they do have a guy in Legette who can take some 30% X reps, even though I think that's not the best use for him, but that's going to allow you to move McMillan around. If he can be like a day one starting X receiver that's a good player right off the bus, this is a nice receiver room, and I think it's good enough to keep the Bryce Young train rolling from last year.
Yeah, it's got some size in this receiver room. T-Mac is 6'4", 220. Xavier Legette's 6'1", 221. Jalen Coker's 6'1", 215. We got some heavyweights in this room. Adam Thielen, I know everyone thinks he's like a little slot guy. He's 6'2", 200 pounds.
He's a big dude. Yeah, he was one of the original kind of big slot receivers. And then it's Hunter Renfrow and Jimmy Horn. I don't know if Horn's he might just be like a returner, but those guys are a little bit on the smaller side.
Oh my! Everyone's trying to make Jimmy Horn happen. I'll wait and see. Everyone, he was getting more hype than McMillan was during camp. I got first and OTAs and stuff.
That is the classic padless practice rule. This is the Chris Wessling rule from back in the day. He always used to say this it's the Paris Campbell corollary. The fast small guys that can't really. I don't know about Jimmy Horn's route running, but Campbell's route running I know. The little fast guys who don't run routes, they always smash in padless practices because it's easy for observers to see. Woo! Look at that! Look at those moves. So yeah, obviously the 6'4" ball winner, smooth operator McMillan not going to get the same type of reviews.
When the media is shunned to a corner of the practice field and one-on-ones are happening, and then they just see, that receiver caught another one. Oh, he's breaking out, even though the number 8 pick's doing a whole bunch of good stuff. Charles, I know you are a big fan of this O-line and this run game last year. Joe Gilbert was your assistant, the offensive line coach for the Panthers, was your assistant coach of the year selection, which I loved. Inspired choice. Still love it. That's why I didn't even need that note. I could remember that. But Charles, what's grabbing your attention with this Panthers offense? Are you optimistic about kind of what they're building? Not even just with Bryce Young, what's he shown, but just everything else around him.
Yeah, I'm optimistic. I thought, last year was interesting because I think, we're as you saw this weekend with the Browns game, we are way too quarterback intensive with how we look at the game.
Perhaps.
And last year, when Bryce Young comes back after Andy Dalton has the car crash that got him back into the starting lineup, which I think is something people forget. He was not going to play if that car accident did not happen, So,
I know.
Yeah, I guess poor for Andy, good for Bryce. And good for Andy that he survived and wasn't hurt too much. Now we're here. But in the back half of that season, I thought there wasn't enough, praise for the job that Dave Canales was doing because he had figured out how to not only hide some of Bryce's shortcomings in terms of physical limitations as a playmaker, but also just scheming the hell out of some of the stuff that they were doing on offense. And I know that we just trashed the Falcons defense. And, they weren't good last year, but that second game that they played in Atlanta towards the back half of last year, I mean, there's dudes running wide open, like all over this tape. And it kind of gets reduced down to, oh man, like Bryce is playing so much better. And he was. Obviously, he was playing better. It would legitimately be hard to be worse than how Bryce was. I think the only quarterback over the past 2 years that was like as bad as that Bryce Young stretch statistically was Deshaun Watson and what he was doing in Cleveland. And we all saw, you know, the reactions to that. So I think Dave doesn't get a lot of credit. But I think this year people are going to get more, you know, just starting to see how well he kind of designed that offense for the back half of the season. Now, like you said, they're gigantic on offense, except for the quarterback, which is visually kind of funny. But I think this is going to be a much better year for the Panthers offense.
It's the 2011 Wisconsin Badgers. Just the biggest offensive line in college or the NFL with Russell Wilson behind it. it was hysterical to look at sometimes. No, I know. I just keep looking at him, and the tape matches this. I mean, I know Bryce Young grabs all the stuff. I'm glad you brought up the kind of quarterback centricness of all of this, but like the designs were good last year. They did some cool stuff out of empty, and Bryce Young's comfortable out of empty, which is, you should be, because the selling point on Bryce Young is that he's super smart. And then you can create plays when things don't go well. So it's like, okay, so you can handle some of those things. But I'm with you. Canales does some nice things. They got good old line, top 10 unit, I would even say. Third in stuff rate allowed, which is gains of 0 yards or TFL. So in a good way, they were third in the back half of last year, 12th in rushing suplex. So success rate plus explosive play. So a good running unit. And then I think this passing game is really going to come together. I have more notes during my breakout player section, so I'll save it for that. But I like the pairing of T-Mac, McMillan, and Bryce Young together. I think that makes sense to me. I actually like McMillan for just about anybody, but especially with Bryce Young. And how they're building this team is making sense in my brain. And so I'm optimistic that we'll start seeing even more signs of it this year. But it's like they're going about it in a good way. I just like this receiving room they built. I like all the skill position spots. Tight end's a little weird for him. Tommy Trimble, I have one share of him. He's hurt right now. Did some nice things last year. They have Sanders too, another kind of undersized athletic guy at tight end. And I like the 5th rounder they drafted, Mitchell Evans from Notre Dame. So yeah, just some good talent. We got to see who turns into something, but they have some good signs here, good kind of a baseline here. All right, we're going to go over to the defensive side of the ball. Matt, I'll start with you. This Panthers defense was a poor unit last year. I'll just rattle off a couple stats before I kick it over to you. 32nd in success rate allowed, 28th in explosive plays allowed, 32nd in pressure rate, 32nd in stuff rate. There's 32 NFL teams, by the way, in case anyone needs to know that. And also in success rate allowed, they're 31st against the pass and 32nd against the run. So what? How can this Panthers defense improve this year? And where do you maybe see it? And what are you focusing on overall with this unit?
Yeah, well, I mean, only one way to go, right? After all those stats you read off there. Really, to me, the return of Derek Brown and hoping that he can be the player he was, because that was just like, this was not going to be a good defense anyways, right? Last year, they were not there from a personnel standpoint. And I like some of the, signings that they made. Wharton is really interesting to me. I thought Roseboom flashed a little bit at times with the Rams, and Trevon Moehrig as a safety is a nice fit here too. And JC Horn I think is a good player. So like they pay him a lot of money, but I think he's a good corner. Like they've got some interesting parts here, and certainly like I think those like 4 signings I mentioned there will help raise the floor a little bit. But it was just not fair that it wasn't going to be a good defense anyways last year, and then Derek Brown goes out in week 1. So his return hopefully being kind of like the central gravitational force of this defense is really what they need to have happen.
Yeah, get healthy. I mean, the 2 best players just keep battling injuries, Derek Brown, JC Horn. It's like, just get healthy. That'll really help. Charles, I by the way, love the pinball analogy for this division. I think that's so perfect. And Panthers defense is a little bit a part of that pinballness. But what about you, Charles, when you're watching this Panthers defense, focusing on, you think Evero can maybe get his groove back? Anything you're focusing on that you think you're optimistic about?
Yeah, I mean, optimistic from the sense that like it's just hard to be worse than where they were last year. I mean, I think it would be crazy to say this is going to be like a good defense, but anytime you're in a situation where last year, like Derek Brown goes down, and that's it, like it's over. Derek Brown's a good player, but when it's one player that causes you to become like one of those teams where people say, could Alabama beat the Carolina Panthers? Could they score on their defense? You're in a really, really bad spot. So I think even just getting like guys like Bobby Brown, Wharton, Trevon Moehrig, like you're just getting some established baseline NFL players, which is something they didn't have last year. So maybe they can get to like, I don't know, like if they were the 20th ranked defense, I think that would be a pretty solid year for what they have. Obviously it's going to take guys staying healthy for a full season. J.C. Horn just got paid, but we know like the full history of his career, him playing all those games last year is kind of an outlier. So we'll still have to see what happens to him moving forward. So it's tentatively improved, but I think to say this is a good unit, you probably just live in Charlotte.
I have this same first note or kind of like goal for the defense. I said top 20 would be amazing. They can get to top 20. Yeah. If they get to top 21, outside the bottom 10 will be okay. Nothing really to add on top of what you guys said. I like the new free agent starters. They needed them. I like the 2 Rams guys they signed. You mentioned Christian Roseboom, Matt, but also Bobby Brown, the nose tackle. I like him. Does some nice dirty work stuff as well. A couple cool day 2 picks, kind of bought low. Guys that had some first round chatter early and throughout the season. Princely Umanamelon and Nick Scoughton and Scorden. Oh God, I already forgot it. Scorden. But Scorden was interesting because I had him as like a top 12 guy going into last year, goes to A&M, puts on a bunch of bad weight, it looked like, and then hopefully they get him back to that 260, 270 range. But he was their second round pick as well. So I think those guys could really, really just help inject some juice into this defense. They need it. Like you guys said, only way they can go is up. Just stay healthy, dang it, because Derek Brown's a really good player. J.C. Horn's a good one, but they need help. Breakout player. A lot of young players on this team. I'm curious where you guys went with this. Matt, who's your breakout player for the Panthers defense? Or Panthers team, not even just defense, just their whole team.
Don't force me onto the defense.
You have to pick one. That terrible defense. You have to pick one breakout player.
Yeah, right. I don't know. It sounds like you might go McMillan. So I'll definitely talk up. I'll just talk up Jalen Coker here as a big breakout player. Like I think that guy can go from a useful, dude, this is the guy that's an undrafted free agent, completely undrafted, has really interesting athletic measurables. You mentioned good size. He actually is built from a measurable standpoint, like a Chris Godwin type, and I think he can be kind of like a, maybe not that like hefty in the run game type player, but a guy that you can play inside but beats man coverage enough to play outside a little bit. Really good hands. I thought he worked himself well in tight coverage last year. Reliable catcher of the football, separates pretty well. Maybe not the most explosive guy in the open field, but he did have that one long catch and run as a rookie. And I love how he kind of adjusted in the preseason on that play where Bryce is scrambling and he kind of like directs him, hey, get over there, and he catches the touchdown. And I think those guys had pretty good chemistry in year one. So just a player that, like, if I was asked for my number one kind of like deep sleeper wide receiver in the league right now, I do think that Jalen Coker would be my answer. Definitely. It's funny, he actually is. He could have a similar career arc to a guy like Adam Thielen, undrafted player who eventually becomes kind of like a really good power slot guy who can play outside as well. So, is he going to usurp Xavier Legette for a starting job? I mean, Legette is a first round pick and, you're fighting up against the odds there as an undrafted guy, but a player that I really, really like. And I do think they should be trying to develop for the future of this team.
Yeah,
I like Coker a lot. So what were you gonna say, Charles?
I'm with you. I was gonna pick Jalen Coker for my breakout player, but I got a little concerned by seeing how late he was playing into that game this weekend. Yeah. Because this just seems like when I watched the games last year, it's not close to me who's a better player between Liggett and Coker right now. And it's unfortunate because because this is when draft status gets piled into how much are we paying Coker versus how much are we paying Liggett versus how much are we paying Thielen. Because I think if you're just taking the best three, he's easily like one of the top two with Tet. Maybe I'm too low on Liggett, but I think it would be a real shame if like he ended up getting phased out of this offense because I think he's got a lot to offer as like a potential long-term starter, especially when you have a guy like Tet who can be a true number one. That's just going to make everything better for the people around him. But for the sake of not picking the same player. I'm going to roll with two players. I'm going to go with Nick Gordon and Princely Umanmian. Oh, I forgot how to pronounce his name.
Umanmelon.
Yeah, Umanmelon. Yeah. The two edge rushers they drafted to come in and try and fix their pass rush rows, front seven rows. I thought that was a really good range for both of them because I think we had heard like coming into the season projected first round, and for Gordon, I think it's a little easier to see why he was maybe than Princely, but for day two, like dice rolls just to see if we can find the pass rusher, I really do like those picks. So one of the two guys, if you can get one of them to hit, I think that's a big boost for your defense.
Day two pass rushers are either like this, kind of buy low, hopefully they have some traits, or like what the Falcons have drafted the last few years. And I'm actually not dogging them. I'm just saying the type that they got. They went for more maybe lower trait guys, but good production kind of guys. Like that's kind of the day two pass rushers. You either get the unproven guys or the guys that have proved it, but maybe don't have the freaky stuff. That's why they're on day two. That's why I was like, there might be some upside here. Yeah, I went with Tetairoa McMillan. I'm super high on him. I usually don't do rookies for this, but he was the one that was just so easy for me to pick, and just how the team makeup was. I really like Coker as well. I think down the road, this receiving room could be great, and how the roles could fill out, how I envision it anyways. McMillan at the X, Coker as the power slot, maybe bump out the Z, and Leggett could be kind of the move guy, get him on a runway, the horizontal guy, and, catch and run type of guy. So I see the vision at the very least. Really like Coker. But McMillan, man, I'm predicting a 1,000-yard rookie season here. I think they're going to feed him. I think he can handle getting fed. I think that him and Bryce already show some chemistry stuff, and maybe this is me extrapolating just from some training camp clips and preseason, but they're already working on timing. Bryce Young, the good and bad of him is his arm is below average, but the good of him is he knows that and tries to get rid of the ball early. And he already has done that in the preseason. I already watched the game. One of the McMillan's catches, he throws it so early, and McMillan turns on his route and adjusts to it. And that's why I like McMillan. He catches everything. And then in preseason clips, they had one in the red zone. McMillan doesn't catch. It's a slant in the end zone. And Bryce throws it so early because he's trusting him. They're trying to build that timing. This is the same thing we talked about with Kyler and Marvin Harrison Jr. I just really like it. I think these two could fit really well together. Maybe because McMillan is used to undersized quarterbacks. He played with Noah Fafita at Arizona, who was shorter than Bryce Young. And McMillan had more yards off scramble drills than any receiver last year in college. And Bryce Young is smart and wants to get rid of the ball quick, or he wants to create and he wants to scramble to throw as opposed to scramble to run. He had the 12th most pass attempts last year that were defined as scramble by NGS. But that is like, he also didn't play every game, so it's probably a higher rate. And his passer rating was 39.6 on those throws. Do you know what your passer rating is if you threw the ball into the stands every single play? 39.6. So let's juice that up a little bit. And I think that's where McMillan comes in. And I think they're going to have some chemistry. So very optimistic about that pairing. Over under win totals for the Panthers. It is at 6.5. Matt, what'd you pick? Over or under?
I went over on this one. I think the offense can be good enough to get them to 7 wins just on its own. I love what you said about like Bryce Young and kind of trusting McMillan on the anticipatory throws, and especially juxtaposing that with the Kyler Marvin Harrison stuff, which I'm sure we'll talk about. Right. Did we previewed that division already? Actually, didn't we? I don't know.
No, we did Maybe. North.
No, we haven't yet. I don't know.
Somebody
asked me about yeah, I know, dude. Somebody asked me about the Marvin Harrison. Like, what went wrong in his rookie year? I was like, dude, I think I've talked about that 300 times at this point. Like, I'm not going to explain it in a tweet. Sorry.
We had like a monthly checkup on this show on it.
Literally. So, but I think that connection, being able to take what was a good, solid, sound offense last year and taking it to another level, I think that can get them 7 wins. All on its own, and then we'll see what the defense can give them too. So yeah, I'm going to go over here.
Awesome. Charles, over under 6.5.
I'll go over. I think the offense will be good enough, and maybe they'll be able to patch just enough with some high-end plays from Derek Brown and Mo Horn to get to over 7 wins on defense.
I'm also going over. I think they'll be frisky, and also teams with a good old line and run game that can hang. It's all up to the defense too. And I think they can pass just enough, with the weapons they have now. So I'm also going over 6.5. All right, we're going to take our last break, and we'll come back with the Saints and Bucs previews. All right, we are back. On to the New Orleans Saints, who I'll spoil the win total part of this, but they're projected for 4.5 wins this year. So this should be a fun discussion. Charles, with the Saints, new head coach Kellen Moore. They have defensive coordinator Brandon Staley. Kind of interesting kind of staff there. A lot of vets, a lot of coaching vets. Nussmeier's on that staff. Scott Tolzien, who I backed up at Wisconsin, is the quarterback coach there. But when you're watching, unknown at quarterback, when you're watching this Saints offense, though, this year in 2025, what are you focusing on?
So the offensive line, it's about it, right? Yeah.
Fun unit.
That's about it. Dude, I mean, okay, am I wrong to say this Tyler Shough thing is probably over already? I mean, come on. Like this is done, right? Like when you said Nussmeier, I was like, oh, maybe they'll be drafting his son next year from LSU. I mean, he's not. Spencer Rattler is starting games over him, and when I watched Tyler Shough against the Chargers, it was pretty apparent why. He's not good. He's not ready to play yet, but he spent 7 years in college, so you probably just move on after this year, right? Like that's just it. So if we're doing a quarterback battle, maybe that's something to look there. It seems like Rattler has a firm hand on the job for now. Neither of those options are really intriguing. So I guess the offensive line is probably the most interesting part. They drafted Kelvin Banks in the first round to play left tackle. Just going to move Talise Fuaga over to right tackle, which is probably a better spot for him. But even though Fuaga played left tackle last year, for a guy who had never played left tackle in college, he looked pretty solid out there. He did fine. So that's really encouraging. Like the Saints, like it just kind of seems like the Saints are always going to have dudes up front that are paying the ass for defensive linemen. And I think they have it again now, because when you start looking at this the front five they have, I guess like the weakest spot you look at is Trevor Penning, but even in ways like he's not as bad as he used to be like when he first started his career. So, not to say he's a plus starter, but not the worst thing you've seen in your life anymore. So, I think if you can just put piece together another solid year from the offensive line, Kamara still looked pretty good last year. That's probably what you're looking for, offensive line and run game, because I just don't see how the passing game is going to be any type of consistent with how the quarterbacks have looked so far. Just it's kind of funny when you see a team's fan base revolt so hard like they did against the Tyler Shough pick, and it looks like they're already justified, because if he's not starting over Spencer Rattler yet, I'm just going to push that out of my brain, and we can cross that off. We'll move on to a new quarterback next year.
He's 2 years older than Rattler. Shough is. He's 2 years older. You can't beat him out. It's kind of just the whole timeline, projecting these guys. Yeah, you're saying he's not the worst thing in the world. The first name that came to mind was Storm Norton, and he's still Storm is still on the Falcons.
Yeah, yeah, he is. He is.
Okay. No, but yeah, Spencer Rattler started out the week 1 of the preseason. Seems like they're kind of giving him more and more reps. Sorry, Jake Hayner. Seems like you're going to be squeezed out again in some way, shape, or form. But yeah, Rattler getting those reps. Shough has already been kind of shunned a little bit. But Matt, with this offense, I really actually want to ask you, first off, still optimistic about Chris Olave and also maybe the rest of the pass catching group? How do you think it maybe shakes out after Olave and Shaheed? But also just how you feel about this offense, this Saints offense. Where do you think the points are going to come from?
Yeah, I like what Charles said about the offensive line. I do have maybe a little bit more skepticism about the interior, but overall, like I think it is a good unit.
Yeah.
The guards, not as much McCoy. When McCoy's on the field, is a good center, but like the guards definitely are probably the question mark of this group. In addition to it is a rookie left tackle. You never really know, but I do think the offensive line can be good, which it's hard to think they're going to completely bottom. It's hard to completely bottom out if you have a above average offensive line, but they still might do it because I actually think that Olave and Shaheed are really good players. Chris Olave is 10th in first downs per route run among wide receivers with 500 plus routes since he entered the league in 2022. Like the guy is on a per route basis one of the more productive receivers in the league. And Rashid Shaheed's really, really good too. Like I think Shaheed is a baller. Like those are two really good players. But like we brought up the depth chart earlier. All you got to do is look over to the right side when you do that, the right side of the screen where Brandon Cooks is the other starting out or the third receiver, whether he's outside, inside, who cares? It's 2025, gang, and Brandon Cooks is back on this team, and behind him it's like Bub Means and Mason Tipton, like not a lot of needle movement. They might be lighter than the Falcons at wide receiver, and the two guys that are good up at the top, Olave and Shaheed, which again, I think that is a really, really good receiver duo that I am personally excited to see how Kellen Moore lines those guys up after he had Devontae Smith go from like a very infrequent slot player to taking career high 46% snaps in the slot last year. I'm really interested to see how Olave and Shaheed get deployed, but those guys have injury issues. Shaheed is coming off of a major injury. Obviously, we know the concussions with Chris Olave. It becomes really light, really fast. So I think there's going to be moments where this offense is fun, particularly with Rattler back there. I'm not some, Spencer Rattler bro or anything. I do think that there is a Spencer Rattler hive out there. I'm not personally counting myself among those guys, but he will rip it. At least he will definitely rip it down the football field. So these like kind of vertical slot flanker options in Shaheed and Chris Olave are at least interesting in that regard. But man, it is super light beyond them.
That why I asked that, or I kind of led the witness a little bit, is just because I looked, I was like, okay, I love Olave. I loved him coming out of the draft. In that draft, it was Drake London and Olave for me. And I was like, man, this guy is just such a good route runner. Just like he's got speed and he just got feel for it. Then he gets concussions, hates his quarterback. And then I'm like, okay, who else they got around him? All right, well, they got other big guys that maybe he gets. And I wrote, if he's not healthy, which is an if. I mean, if we look at history, with a first-year starting quarterback and whatever you want to say, like I know Rattler started some games, yada, yada, yada. But it's like really a first-time full-time starter. Got some young offensive linemen up there. It's like, man, that could go south like really quick because who else are you going to trust? Shaheed, I really like in his role. But after that, so I kind of had the same focus as you guys. I was like, man, this offensive line can turn into something, especially if Kelvin Banks is a real left tackle. I really like him. I would kind of picture him more as a guard, but I said my final review of him is like he deserves a shot at left tackle because of just his length, athleticism, what he has shown. But man, it's just a little scary. I like Spencer Rattler. Like I do. He can spin it. And I had him in the same tier as Bo Nix and Penix in that draft process. I did. He fell because he's had maturity issues that have followed him since high school. Apparently, from everyone I talked to, not just guys with him, but people have interviewed him, he's really mellowed out, been a lot better. I'm sure that was an interesting quarterback room with Hayner, who has fought teammates over the years, and Spencer Rattler and Derek Carr. But I mean, Spencer Rattler was getting Aaron Rodgers comparisons after his freshman year of college, just because he could just spin it like that. He's not very big, not the greatest athlete. At South Carolina, he was getting his head taken off every single play, but he was standing there and firing it. So maybe give him a little line. There's going to be some ups and downs, but at least he's going to have some moments, especially if Olave is healthy, because I just really do think he has some highs as a thrower. I'd rather bet I have a higher grade on him than I did Shough, so I understand that they're already leaning that way. It just makes me question the whole process that they went through this offseason. So I'm nothing really to add that you guys have said. The running back room's interesting to me behind Kamara. Keandre Miller had a nice preseason game, actually picked up a pass protection. I was like, okay. I like Devin Neal, but he's injured right now, but I thought he could have been a good number 2 for him. But we'll see what happens with him. But yeah, Olave is really a linchpin for success on this side of the ball, even outside the quarterback stuff. Defense. Dennis Allen is now in Chicago. Enter Brandon Staley. And a lot of the same personnel. But I will say that they brought in Justin Reed to be a safety, and this is the third time that Justin Reed has been drafted or signed by a team to replace Tyrann Mathieu. He was drafted by the Texans in 2018. Honey Badger was gone after that year. Signed by the Chiefs in 2022. They went from one of the worst tackling teams in the NFL, remember the AFC Championship game against the Bengals, to one of the best, and then now signed by the Saints, and Honey Badger retires. Great career, but retires. I just thought that was a funny little tidbit. Charles, this Saints defense, though, what grabs your attention with them?
It's weird because they have really not been able to maximize the talent here, right? Because they've been so aggressive with some of the moves they've made over the years. So it feels like it's dissipating a little bit, but you look at some of the players they have and it's not like totally hopeless, like DeMario Davis, still a solid player, like Pete Werner. Chase Young had a pretty good year last year, to the point where I was surprised that he signed back with them because I thought he was going to get
top
a bigger
10 in pressure rate.
Among
Like last year.
He looked good. It seems like Kool-Aid McKinstry is someone that they're high on this year as a potential starter at cornerback as they try to replace Lattimore when they traded him to the Commanders last year. So it's an incomplete defense, but they still have some good players. I think the kind of poison pill I see is, I guess, the non-Chase Young defensive lineman. Cam Jordan he's played a lot of football, man. He's starting to move like he's played a whole lot of football there too. And then even when you look at some of the defensive linemen that they have, Shough, solid, but he's bounced around the past couple of years. I think what you really need though is a big year from Brian Brzee, which is, I'm not sure how much you can really expect that from him because he had a okay rookie year, some high moments, a fair amount of low moments. I don't know if he's like maybe the game breaker they think he is, but I see just another one of those Saints defenses that's solid, but probably not good all the way through because they are, changing some faces in the secondary.
Yeah, not as bad, not as desperate as I thought this unit would be. They have a little bit more talent, just actually with just solid players, I guess. Like Alontae Taylor is kind of epitomizes it. Like he had good moments a couple of years ago, and then last year it was probably one of the worst tackling DBs in the NFL last year. Just watch that game against the Bucs where the Bucs just scored and ran and broke 40 tackles. Sean Tucker looked like wearing number 44, should be retired at Syracuse. I like that joke. That was good. All right, Matt, when you watch the Saints defense, part of the pinball division, what are you focusing on with them? Where are the paths to improvement or at least sustainability on this unit?
I guess I'm just curious about what Brandon Staley does from a structural perspective, because everything that he was pitching, with the Rams when he was there as defensive coordinator for 1 year, kind of for not a very long time, very quickly became the in vogue thing and sort of the defensive meta. And then it feels like we've quickly done away with that. Right. All right. Enough of that.
Very quickly.
If you're going to do the Fangio, if you're going to do the Fangio stuff, you're just going to get Vic Fangio to do it. You're not going to get one of his disciples. And then otherwise, it's just, I don't know. So that to me is the most interesting thing about their defense. Cause I agree. They've got some they have some solid players. I actually think Justin Reed is a really interesting guy for them to grab in this secondary, and how he gets deployed and maybe potentially weaponized on the back end, and coming down closer to the line of scrimmage could be fun to watch. As much as it's going to be fun to watch the Saints this year, that could be fun to watch and see how he gets used, because he's a really, really smart player. But just overall from a structure perspective, and Brandon Staley's sort of redemption tour, where it seemed like he wasn't even was he even really considered as the 49ers defensive coordinator? He was in the building for a year, and it was just let's get Robert Saleh back or bust. So I'm very much interested to see how because I just things went so poorly in Los Angeles, not just from a head coaching perspective, but that defense just never caught on at all. So in his sort of redemption tour, a guy that, the football media really loved, seemingly for a hot second there, one of the fastest burning, brightest primes that we've seen from a coaching rise perspective. Interested to see if he's got anything in the second act here.
Now, who did that? I think what Brandon Staley too, because obviously his stock has never been lower. It was one of those where it's do you know what makes your defense work? Because how they built up the Chargers defense, and he had a couple of years at it, they're getting edge guys. And it was no, you need beef in the middle. If you're going to do soft boxes, you need guys that can destroy the offensive line just by themselves. And they just kept going with all these undersized guys and soft run defenders. I'm no, you need run defenders. the scheme is what the pass coverage is. So that always confused me. Signing, what's his name? J.C. Jackson from the Patriots.
Oh my God.
That
plays man coverage.
Bizarre. So bizarre.
And I know I've had a lot of fun with Tom Telesco for a few years, but the head coach has input on that. How did no one go, hey, they run nothing but man coverage, and a lot of it's double team stuff, and we run zone all the time. Why? It was like, do you know what you need? That's what's always gotten me with Brandon Staley, because how they built that Chargers defense, it was like the personnel never matched what they needed. And man, sorry, that could be a long show, but this defense has some guys that match it. Like, I actually like the linebackers for it, because the one quality Brandon Staley had, especially when he joined the 49ers, really, and this was the end of the Chargers days when his stock was going down, still brought some real stuff on third down. Had some real cool pressure looks. It was early downs where they just got their teeth kicked in, but third downs were kind of cool. So this defense actually matches that. Like, Pete Werner and DeMario Davis are really good blitzers, and those pressure looks should match what they do. And I like the Justin Reed. We're both hyping him up because it's just like he's just a good, solid player that can do a lot. But yeah, I gotta see. Even Vic Fangio, those Broncos defenses when he was the head coach never, topped out. It's because you need dudes. Like, you need all pros on the defensive front. Every good Fangio defense has had dudes at defensive tackle. Jalen Carter last year, it's even the Dolphins improvement happened with Seiler and Christian Wilkins and all those guys. It's like the 49ers defenses had badasses in the front seven. So it's one of these things where it's like, even as good as the personnel is.
So Isaac Sapunga, that was my guy, bro. Next to Justin Smith on this 49ers defense.
Yes.
Just straight ass kickers in the middle of the field. Yeah.
And the linebackers they had, so it's one of these things where scheme can go a long ways, but it's like you still need the guys to do it. And that's the whole Staley discussion. But yeah, Chase Young, glad we gave him a shout out, because I thought he would go somewhere else too, Charles, because it's just like he had a good year last year, and I think he could be a really good number 2 for somebody. Carl Granderson's on this roster. He's streaky, but he can get after the passer a little bit. But we'll go on to breakout players now.
I'm just saying, Carl is a first ballot. I got the bag and checked out Hall of Famer.
Oh my God!
He hasn't played.
He hasn't played
one good game of football since he signed that contract.
Because that was 2 years ago, like September or October, and then you're exactly right, because he was tearing it up for like a month, and then he got unplugged.
Signed that deal, and
he basically got Frank Reich fired. That's why he went undrafted, didn't he? Some of that stuff.
Yeah,
I know.
He was
undrafted free agent because that was
issues back in the past.
Yeah, he had some issues. Breakout player. This is an interesting team, so I'm curious where you guys went with it. Charles, who's your breakout player for the Saints?
I went with Kelvin Banks. I just think that could be the piece that just keeps that offensive line churning and being productive and putting up good rushing numbers, even though the situation around them has kind of deteriorated. So as long as Eric McCoy can stay healthy, because I think that's going to be like the linchpin that keeps the interior line solid. Yeah. If he misses more time this year, that's going to be a problem. But I think as long as you have Banks, McCoy, and Fuaga in your starting lineup, you're probably going to be pretty solid up front. But Banks is going to need to break out for that to happen.
Like that. Matt, what about you?
Yeah, I went with Talise Fuaga actually on the other side of the offensive line, because I'd love to pick one of the pass catchers. I went with their young
tackles. So
yeah, well, perfect. I mean, great, because you can definitely break out and become a household name on what might be the 32nd ranked offense. So when you're an offensive tackle, for sure. But yeah, I think Fuaga played pretty well, like really held his own, if not played just damn good football as a rookie left tackle, but I think he's probably better on the right side. So just again, this is an offense that it's just tough, right? Again, it's just tough with the quarterback situation. It's tough with how light they are at pass catcher, but I really do have a lot of confidence in this front line, and I think Fuaga kicking back over to right tackle is going to be a big win for them, especially if Banks can do what Charles said and hit the ground running.
Yep, I said the young tackles. I was desperate for that. I was like, I don't know, does Chase Young count? I haven't seen him since a rookie year. I was trying to find one that I could maybe grab. So I kind of went with the same with you guys. I would say I'm full bullish, full optimistic about Kellen Moore as a head coach, but I do think I have some optimism long term. I do think he's going to be a decent head coach because he's very organized. He's good with players. A lot of people just like him. I've known Kellen for years. Not buddy, but I could shake his hand. We were the same class coming out of high school. But he is, I think, just organized. I think he loves football. I think he's good relating with players. So that's one where I think long term, even though this is Saints franchise is kind of in a weird situation, a bad situation. Yeah, I kind of like what he is. I don't think he's just a stopgap 1-2 year guy. And then we get a real guy in a few years. Like I think long term he could have a shot to stick. So I just wanted to get that out there too. And I think the Saints, fan base, if Rattler's not getting it done, interesting quarterback class next year. It's interesting. I really like Fernando Mendoza from Indiana. Keep an eye on him. Lenore Sellers, South Carolina. Garrett Nussmeier, LSU. Cade Klubnik, Clemson. Arch Manning, we'll see. But if Arch Manning was coming out this year, he's number one. But yeah, we'll see how that goes. So Archie's already putting out like, hey, don't tank for him. Don't you dare. I'll pull an Eli. I'll get Eli out of it. Hey, Peyton.
And now Archie's old. He doesn't have to care anymore.
No, he does not carry either. Freaking Bill Parcells wouldn't guarantee that Peyton Manning was going to be the number one pick in the 97 draft. So he went back to school, back to Tennessee and stayed back for his senior year. So way to go, Bill. Way to go, Big Tuna. But anyways, over under 4.5 wins. They are the lowest win total according to Vegas. Charles, over or under 4.5? That's so low.
Under. I know it's so low, but like that. Some of the clips from the Chargers game I watched this weekend, it was pretty alarming. Like if this is what your quarterback situation is going to be, you're not winning 5 games.
Yeah, Matt, over under 4.5.
It's so low, but I also went under 2. I think they'll pick first in the draft. They'll take a new quarterback, and we just keep moving next year. Good luck, Kellen.
Yep. Yeah, I also picked low. I said that's scary low, but I think it is going to be under. It's all just for Saints fans listening or anything. It's just for positive signs. Like, is Rattler anything?
Not
Do
for
we have
me.
some answers?
More negativity, more power to you. I hate this
how
team.
much you can fuel Charles for another year of hatred.
Keep happening.
You
the only team I hate more than the
Falcons
Falcons are the Saints.
You just want to see that Uber driver in New Orleans again. What now? All right, we are going to move on to the last team and the defending division champs for a couple of years now, I believe, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Man, well, this is going to be a little different discussion, I feel like. a little bit of mouthwash after that. Matt, Bucs offense, they lost Liam Cohen, your guy, now the head coach of the Jags, retained a lot of their staff. Kevin Carberry is still their offensive line coach, which I do like. Still have Baker Mayfield at quarterback, return really everybody on offense. So Matt, what are you focusing on with this unit?
Yeah, just how much they keep the same from last year from a structure, a play calling perspective. Everything that the Bucs are telling us is that Josh Grizzard, the new offensive coordinator, who was a pass game coordinator last year, who has an interesting background. He spent a lot of time in Miami, but he was apparently the third down guy last year, like helped design a lot of that. That's what that keeps getting a lot of pop, right? That he was the third down guy, designed a lot of those concepts and even put in some of the calls there for the third down stuff. So a guy that probably at some point last year, if they knew they were always going to keep Todd Bowles as the head coach, now they've kept him, they've extended his contract. We got to start grooming somebody, maybe because Liam Cohen's obviously going to be a head coach somewhere else, although they really tried to not make that happen. That's kind of the pivot point to me here, because they have so many good players here. They drafted Mecca Egbuka, who they cannot shut up about, and I think for good reason.
Oh my God,
they just love this guy, and I'm still getting higher and higher on him too. Like I'm buying what they're selling, man. And I already really liked him, like a clear first round wideout to me. Second best, him and Matthew Golden were the 2 and 3 zone beaters in the class last year after Travis Hunter. And I think they do so much with the pre-snap eye candy, sort of stacking these receivers together, that they're going to get a lot of free releases for him, the stuff that he really thrives on. So he's just this offense brought back everybody. Obviously, the Tristan Wirfs injury is something we should not yada over. That's a big deal. How much time is he going to miss? But to me, certainly the biggest question is just from a structure perspective, a design perspective, how much of that carries over from Liam Cohen's top 3 offense last year by very many metrics.
Yeah, that's the big thing is the drop off if there's any. Charles, what about you with this Bucs offense? What are you focusing on? What grabs your attention? Reasons for optimism, reasons for pessimism? Any of those?
reasons for pessimism is I just envision this as an offense where Baker Mayfield has a heavier portion of the plate than he did last year, and I've seen that too many times for seasons at this time. This is Baker's 7th season in the NFL. I mean, we're talking about if Tristan Wirfs is down for the first month of the season. I mean, you don't know. I would imagine it's still pretty good because he's still Tristan Wirfs, but you don't know what that looks like when he does get back eventually. And I just imagine, like, if he is slowed down, it doesn't take much for Baker to become a completely unraveled quarterback. Like, this stuff has to be perfect for him. And a bunch of their best games last year were when his ADOT was under like 4 yards or even 3 yards sometimes, where you're just dumping it off. You're not letting him affect the game. You're not letting him sit back there in the quarter with the ball in his hands, because we know what happens when Baker becomes a quarterback that has to sit there and read the field. The sacks skyrocket, the interceptions skyrocket, the fumble skyrocket. He's just not a very careful quarterback. So you had to neuter him so much last year for you to get that offense. Can you do it again? I guess is the bet here. Without a super healthy Tristan Wirfs, you're not starting the season with the same Chris Godwin you were your last year. And now you have to replicate all-time running back screen production with a new offensive coordinator who, Nate, we were talking about this morning. Look at his resume. He hasn't done much of anything in his coaching career. So this is the first time. Like, I don't get how this could possibly be one of the best offenses in the NFL. Maybe I'm wrong, but I'm like, you have to recreate so much from last year that is already not on the table for week one. I don't know. Like, do it again. Have the best screen game in NFL history again. Win another division, which is probably possible with this year, where Baker Mayfield, the best games are when you don't let him throw the ball. I don't know. It just too many mysteries here. Too many things that don't seem like it's going to mesh cohesively as well as it did last year. The offensive line should still be pretty good, but I just don't trust Baker with like any sorts of injuries up front.
Can I cut in here real quick, just because I know what people are going to say to Charles in response to that. We'll go back to the 2023 season. Well, that's fine, but I just like, and you probably shouldn't. But people are gonna bring up the 2023 season, but where I did think Baker played well, but he didn't play to the level he did last year, and obviously there was different personnel. But that 2023 Bucs offense was 20th in points per game. It was 27th in success rate and 17th in EPA per play. So they did take a bit, like it's not just 2 straight years of burning the league down on offense. There's a couple. There's one last year and then a solid season the year before.
They had the worst run game in the NFL in 2023. It was like, and everyone, Canales goes to Panthers and everyone was making fun of him. He goes, well, I'm going to run the ball. And everyone's like, well, it sucked last year. It was like, well, guys, like, having good old linemen helps. When you drop in Graham Barton and Cody Mock turns into a real boy like that and Luke Gadecki turns into like a good player, that really helps. And they were 32nd in rushing suplex rate in 2023. They were 6th last year. Like, that helps a ton for this entire offense. They were middle of the pack in pressure rate allowed. They were 2nd in one-on-one pressure rate allowed last year. And that helps Baker, because Baker could be a high wire act. This has always been my comparison for Baker. He's Russell Wilson without the athleticism. Just as far as go ball thrower, can fire some tight window throws. A little bit of pressure scares the out of him. And it can kind of just unravel him. Sometimes good. He's always going to bail to his right as well. Sometimes good, but sometimes it can get screwy. The Lions playoff game, I think, because of the Anthony Richardson sack that he took that broke his finger, dislocated his finger. That I don't know if anybody saw any breakdowns from this weekend on that play, but
you have a video coming out on that, right?
Oh yeah. I got a 14-part video on it on a. It's just protection rules. By the way, on that play, my note on that play, that Anthony Richardson sack, the center can repoint it to the guy that blitzed, and we wouldn't be talking about any of this if the center did his freaking job. But he's a second-year starter, former Badger, by the way. But if he did his job, then we're not even talking about it. But who cares? He's hot off the thing. And I pulled up a clip from that because Baker Mayfield against the Lions in a playoff game 2 years ago got sacked twice on the exact same type of pressure, the exact same type of thing where he doesn't get rid of the ball. And that's part of Baker's DNA. It's the highs of Baker are good. You can win I really mean this. You can make a run with Baker Mayfield in this offense. It's just that his lows can be catastrophic. And Liam did a really, I don't know Liam, but Liam Cohen did a really good job of insulating. I always use that word, insulating, making sure that the negatives weren't too negative. while letting him do the high wire stuff. So the run game has to be good to maintain all of this. I think it will be because Carberry's still there, the O-line coach, and they have such a huge input on the run game, most of it. And I bring it up to your point about, God, I want to call him Blizzard, but with Grizzard, Blizzard Entertainment, Warcraft's a great game. Warcraft 2, love that game. But anyways, Overwatch is that he was the 2024 passing game coordinator. He did third downs. Coaching staffs, it's either like I think Kyle Shanahan kind of takes all of it and then gets some input from other coaches. Other staffs break it up by situation. One coach is third down, one coach is red zone, one coach is short yardage, one coach is 2 minute, 4 minute, one coach is backed up. Just having you create the menu of plays, you, the offense coordinator, figure out, the play caller figure it out, and that's what you go with. So him being third down is interesting, but the thing is he's never called plays, and you just never know with these guys that don't call plays. You don't know when they panic. You don't know if they're bad. You don't know if they don't see it. But I do like the offensive line coach is there. Like that does give me a little bit of optimism for the run game being okay, but it needs to be, I think, especially with Tristan Wirfs being out the first 4 weeks. Moving on to the defense, which is an interesting roster. Got some nice youth. I mean, this roster is Jason White just does a good job. They just got good players that are older, then transition to younger players. But Charles, when you look at the Bucs defense, what do you focus on first? What do they need to improve upon to maybe make this more than just the best of the NFC South, turn it into like a real contender?
If you're looking at the Bucs defense, I think for them to actualize like what the best case scenario for this defense can be, you're probably going to need more production out of their front seven. Vita Vea is one of the best nose tackles of this generation. Kalijah Kancey, I think, is to me, he's like what I thought we were going to get from him, where the highs are really high, but you're still a 280-pound guy playing on the inside, and NFL offensive linemen are really heavy, and sometimes bad things happen to you. And outside of them, like they're just still, they've got some guys I think you're still hoping you get a little boost from. Like I think Logan Hall has probably been a smidge of a disappointment coming out of the draft. You're in a position where you got to sign Hassan Reddick, Joe Tryon, who they drafted a couple years ago. Like he's on a different team. So, I still kind of trust Todd Bowles to figure something out for this defense. I don't know if that's irrational, even because I don't love the personnel, but I think it starts with just getting a lot more production out of that front seven, especially guys who you've invested in like Kancey. Maybe Vita Vea can be a little bit more for you this year, even though what he is now is fine. You just got to figure out a way to get more production from those guys up front and off the edge.
Yeah, front seven, so huge for them. I got a couple stats on that. Inside linebacker is interesting to me because I love Levante David, but he's definitely on the tail end, and it's just like whoever runs next to him got to do something, especially on base downs. Matt, what about you with this Bucs defense? What are you focusing on? Optimism, pessimism, or just thoughts on them?
Yeah, I don't really know how I feel about this Bucs defense because, I mean, they were giving it up on the back end last year, and I'm still kind of working out like how much of that was a coverage issue, how much of that is a pass rush issue, but
injuries,
they want to live in injuries as well. Obviously, Winfield was out for a good chunk of the season. That's certainly like that can't happen again, right? Like he needs to be out there for all 17 games because he's a big part of what they do on the back end. And Jamel Dean, I think definitely needs to play better too. So I don't know, man. Like they want to live and die a little bit by the blitz, but they need to get more just natural pressure as well because veteran quarterbacks just knew exactly how to beat their blitz stuff last year. It was just like, okay, you want to have a big passing production game, you go against this Falcons defense and you just identify right where the blitz is coming from, and you throw the football right in that hole. So to me, they were just way too easy of a defense to solve last year, which I think is partially a scheme issue. It's partly a personnel issue, and like the personnel thing you can pull in two different directions.
It's hard. I know I use cross sports analogies, but like one for Todd Bowles is like he's got really good curveball, but the fastball isn't that great. He's got really good junk pitches, but the fastball isn't that great. So if you know how to hit the junk pitches, oh my God, you can just torch because it's pretty predictable. Like what he does, it's chaos, but it's kind of, he does the same things over the years. And it's just like, you got to be ready for when he throws the chaos at you. But what you guys said, especially what you said there at the end, Matt, that's what I'm focusing on is can they win with 4? Can this front seven hold up without blitzing? Because last year they were literally, no team has blitzed more than the Bucs did the second half of last year ever. I mean, at least on record. I don't know what those Rex Ryan defenses looked at or the Buddy Ryan defenses looked at in the 90s or the 80s, but they had, what was it? They were middle of the pack pressure rate when rushing 4, as far as what their front 4 could do when they just rushed it. They were 7th in pressure rate when they brought 5 or more, when they brought a blitz. They had a 50% blitz rate on third down last year, which is the highest in the NFL, second highest for the last 4 seasons. From week 10 onwards, they had a 65.4% third down blitz rate. 2 out of 3 third downs, they were blitzing. That is the highest rate on record, which goes to 2016, according to Next Gen Stats. The highest, other than them, is like low 50s, like 52, 53, 54, Wink Martindale Ravens defenses. So 10% more than a Wink Martindale defense. That's what the Bucs were doing at the second half of last year because their DBs got hurt and they couldn't hold up. And then they couldn't really get home with 4, so they're like, well, we got to win in 2 seconds or we're dead. And that's what and I think Bowles even said this offseason, which is why I thought they're going to go defense early in the draft. Not that I'm hating the Buka pick because I like them, but it was like, oh, this is easy. They're going defense because he kept saying, we need to win with 4. I don't want to blitz that much. We need to win with just natural pressure. We'll see if they figure it out. But they were so, it was insane. We've never seen anything like it. Just how insane that blitz rate was by the end of last year. And it was because of the personnel woes at the back end. But they need to figure it out, a different math for them. Because otherwise, like you said, Matt, you face some good passing games, they'll just torch it. They'll just block it up and let it go. And that's just a hard way to live. All right, breakout player. We're in the home stretch here. Charles, breakout player for the Bucs.
This is tough because I feel like they have so many established guys already on this team. But I'm gonna go with Tice Smith, safety on the back end, plays next to Antoine Winfield. Another one of my famed Georgia Bulldogs who brought home some of those national championships a few years ago, which feels like it's getting further and further away by the day. But
I feel like the talk to you in 20 years about it.
But yeah, I'm going to go with Tice Smith. I thought he had some good moments last year. I think him and Antoine Winfield are just a really fun safety duo. It's I guess it can kind of be like how I talked about Jesse Bates and Xavier Watts earlier, where they're going to take some chances, but man, like when they hit, they get their hands on the ball, it looks really good. So I'm going with Tice Smith. I think he's a really solid starter that can take his game up, but they still need some help at corner. I
like that. Matt, breakout player for you.
I went with Kalijah Cansey there. I agree with Charles that he might only ever be just like a pass rush merchant, that sounds so mean, but a guy that like his highlight is a gap shooter. That's a much more polite way of saying what I was trying to say. He's a gap shooter, 8 sacks last year, but not one of the most pressures in terms of the interior defensive lineman. We kicked that up this year. That to me it seems like that's what they are counting on. Like he takes a step forward. He becomes, you don't want to put him necessarily in like the Chris Jones or the Dexter Lawrence category. And I don't think he has the size to be one of those players, but from a pass rush perspective, I do think he can take another step forward and become, maybe like a Geno Atkins type from those like Bengals defenses, where that becomes the guy that, all right, he's their difference maker here. It certainly seems like they're counting on that.
That's the best comparison for him. Yeah. Cansey can, these type of defensive tackles are weird for me because I appreciate them, but it's like you need other guys to help it out. They have the perfect nose tackle next to him in Vita Vea. So it's kind of, when they go 3-4, they do some funky things with them. But when they go 4 down, I actually like that pairing because Kalijah Cansey was my breakout player as well. Same notes that you have. I don't think he's ever going to be good against the run. It's going to be boom or bust. He'll get some TFLs because he shoots the gap, but he'll get blown off the ball. Luckily, they have Vita Vea next to him to help him out. And then, I think he'll be disruptive on the inside. And it's nice. It's like, all right, if he shoots the gap, quarterback has to step up. Vita Vea can just push the center or the guard back into that quarterback stepping up. That's, you usually see that with edge rushers, but it's kind of nice to have that pocket pusher / guy they can win with bend, but they do it on the interior. Kind of like that little synergy there. I like a lot of things with the Bucs. I really do. It's like they're just just really like a lot of their players. I like how they go about things. So Cansey is a part of that. All right. Wrapping it up. Wins over under. It's at 9.5. They won 10 games last year. Charles, over under 9.5 wins for the Bucs next year.
I think I'll go under. Just at 9 sounds about right to me. I think there's just enough overturn on offense, and I don't trust the quarterback to be like the stabilizing force through that. So I'll go under.
Matt, what about you?
9.5 is really good. I will go over. I think they can win 10 games this year. I probably trust Baker a little bit more than Charles, even if I totally understand the skepticism. And I think they can split. They can more than split the difference between the 2023 offense and the 2024 offense, just because the players are better, right? In than it was in the 2023 offense. I think it's a little bit of a deeper room too. So yeah, I think that I like that. That's kind of. I think 10 wins is perfect, and I'll probably still be a coward. I want to pick the Panthers to win the division, but I think I'm going to be a coward and pick them to win the division too.
You still got a moment to marinate on that. I'm going to go over.
Well,
I'm with you, Matt. Literally what you said, Matt. Like, I think this offense might be more of a bridge between 2023, 2024, or a midway point. Just because I do trust the O-line. I really do. And if they didn't have that O-line coach come back, then I'd be like, this is really scary. But that helps me just think that the floor will still be high. Baker will have his moments up and down, good and bad, but I'm going to go over, but I think it's slight over, and they play in this division. That also helps as well. All right, final division prediction. Who is going to win the NFC South in 2025? Charles, who do you got?
I've already penciled in Tampa Bay for a bad wild card loss, so I'll go with the Bucs.
Matt?
Yeah, I really want to pick Carolina, but I'll go Tampa Bay. I just think they're too good and too well run of a team to like completely bottom out here.
They just have. Yeah, I'm going to go Bucs as well, and I'm interested in the Panthers. I am. I give them a little side eye, but it's just the Bucs. I just think even if there's drop off, they just have every position has talent, and that's an easy thing to bet on. Like maybe inside linebacker, but they still have like decent guys there. So it's like every position has talent, and those teams, it's just like, even if I have questions, it's easy to bet on that. So going with the Bucs as well. All right, closing it out today on Football 301. That was a ton of fun previewing the NFC South. Closing it out today. We'll be back on Wednesday later this week with the AFC South. Woo! Then we go East and then West. I am Nate Tice. You can find me at Nate_Tice on social media. That's Charles McDonald. You can find him at 4Verts. And that's Matt Harmon. You can find him at Matt Harmon or Matt Harmon_BYB on social media. Bunch of great stuff out on Yahoo, so make sure to check it out. We got plenty of preseason stuff. Matt's got 100 million fantasy football angle things, so this is fun for him, I'm sure, to talk about other aspects of the American football game. But make sure you subscribe to us here at Football 301. Follow us, rate us. We'd really, really appreciate it. Also, watch us on YouTube, on the Yahoo Sports YouTube channel. Make sure to subscribe and rate us there as well. Thanks to Stone, Madison, and Ingrid behind the scenes for making us look and sound good. We'll be back on Wednesday. Thanks for listening. See you guys next time.